Would you release any of those recordings since your credibility is being questioned?
My credibility is being questioned by a man who has less credibility than perhaps anyone who has ever walked on Earth at this point.
Wolff also doubled down on the overall portrait of President Trump, which he says is shared by 100% of the people around him.
Everyone around the president, senior advisors, family members, every single one of them questions his intelligence and fitness for office.
Let me put a marker in the sand here. 100% of the people around him. I will tell you the one description that everyone has in common. They all say he is like a child. And what they mean by that is he has a need for immediate gratification. It's all about him. I mean, this letter for this cease and desist letter. I mean, I still have sources in the White House, and I know everybody was going, we should not be doing this. This is not smart. And he just insists. He just has to be satisfied in the moment.
Here's what some of the people around President Trump have said.
Should Americans be concerned about the president's mental fitness, that he appears to be speaking so lightly about threats regarding the nuclear button?
I think the president and the people of this country should be concerned about the mental fitness of the leader of North Korea.
I've never questioned his mental fitness. I have no reason to question his mental fitness.
Here's the thing. It might be more noticeable what they did not say. No one from the White House has directly addressed the claims in Michael Wolff's book that it's chaos inside the White House. No one from the White House has addressed directly the claims that Trump acts like a child. Will they? It's hard to say. But tonight, Axios reports more than half a dozen of the more skilled White House staff are contemplating imminent departures. Many leaving are quite fearful about the next chapter of the Trump presidency. Joining us now are Neera Tanden, president of the Center for American Progress, Daniel Dale, Washington correspondent for the Toronto Star, and Jennifer Rubin, conservative opinion writer at the Washington Post. Guys, welcome. I find it noticeable that so many of Donald Trump's sympathizers, Donald Trump's supporters, are going on cable outlets and dismissing this book wholeheartedly, but they're not really getting into many of the details. There is one detail that really just struck out for me, one detail that I noticed, and that came from Sam Nunberg, who I had on my 2 p.m. show earlier today, and that was Sam Nunberg trying to explain the Constitution to a man who was running to be the president of the United States. Take a listen to what Sam said.
Michael says that I went in there to teach him the Constitution. I didn't go in there to teach him the Constitution. What I went in there was, it was a week and a half before the first debate, and I was scared. I go in, and I try to have a brief. I'm like, let me give you a gotcha question on this, gotcha question on that, gotcha question on this. I can only get to the Fourth Amendment before four of the people are walking in. He tells me to,
No, that's not what you said in the book. You didn't say it was people walking in. The book, you said his eyes rolled back in his head. You implied that he could not understand.
Well, that's not what
what was in the Constitution. He didn't care enough. Maybe that's what it is.
That's what it was.
So he doesn't care about learning the Constitution.
No, he knows the Constitution. I don't think he cared about preparing
hold on. He didn't care about preparing for that debate. He didn't necessarily care about learning the whole Constitution, as Sam Nunberg was saying in that book. Daniel, he's now in the White House. Who in the White House cares about the Constitution for the President of the United States?
Well, I think, everyone around him is responsible for making it appear as if he has the level of knowledge that every previous president had. What's curious to me is that the media in the U.S. has rarely, if ever, pressed him to demonstrate this knowledge. The kinds of gotcha questions that previous candidates without political experience got.
Is that a gotcha question, though, Daniel?
No,
what's in the Constitution?
It shouldn't be considered one. I think candidates would consider it one. But Trump himself skates away in interviews by opining on things, but on things as diverse as the Constitution, healthcare policy, Middle East policy, it's not clear that he has basic knowledge. Where is Israel? What are its neighbors? What is Medicaid? What does Obamacare actually do? And so on all those things and on the Constitution, we just don't know what precisely this president actually knows.
And Jennifer, what do you think readers are going to take away from this book once they can finally dig into it?
Well, first of all, Katie, I am sorry that the president didn't threaten to ban your book, because I'm sure that would have been a big help to sales.
He did tweet about my book the day of the release, saying that I had no access. There was that.
Well, there's that to fall back on. I hope the American people take away two things. One is that the people around him are not doing the country a favor. They are misusing their power, and they are committing a horrible miscarriage of justice and miscarriage of the Constitution. If he is incapable of carrying out the duties of the presidency, it's not their job to disguise that or to run around doing the job. We didn't elect any of them. If he's not fit, they need to come forward to the American people. And we have a vice president for precisely that reason. So I think the American people should be very concerned that he is not fit for office and that these people are disguising this, hiding this from us. The second issue I think that we should be very alarmed about is that there's an awful lot of evidence between this and the New York Times release this week in terms of obstruction of justice. And this, in fact, involves the Attorney General. I have been one who said we shouldn't fire the Attorney General because he was there, in essence, to protect Mueller. Now I think he has to go. I think there's direct evidence that he is implicated in an obstruction of justice, in trying to cook up a phony reason to get rid of the FBI director at the time. And I think he has to go. And I think the little component parts of a claim of obstruction of justice are coming together.
But Jennifer, who would replace him? Who would get by a confirmation?
You know what? We have a deputy attorney general, and that person can act in the attorney general spot for as long as need be.
Rod Rosenstein. Neera, can you imagine a scenario where Michael Wolff would get this sort of access to any other White House?
I mean, the whole thing is really stunning. I have to agree with Jennifer. I worked in two different White Houses, in the Obama White House and in the Clinton White House, and there were certainly books that, you know, were portrayed to be insider details, but they did not. None of those authors sat out in the West Wing for months at a time. And I mean, I think what's really stunning about this book is just the universal view of Trump's own aides thinking he is unfit to be president. And basically, in the last 48 hours, we've had reporter after reporter basically sort of blindly, in a way, basically confirm that the staffers will go on TV and defend the president and then roll their eyes about him, or actually confess privately to hold serious doubts. And so, I think this is like a kind of existential moment for the country. Do we have a president who is fit to serve as leader of the free world and as leader of our country? If you can't read memos or read your presidential daily briefing or have no interest in doing so, it's hard to do the hardest job in the world. And, I think this is like a big moment for the country, actually.
Daniel, the thing about this book is that although it is shocking in its details and it's riveting in the gossipy aspect of it, it does fall in line with a lot of the reporting that we've been seeing since Donald Trump took office about the chaos within his White House. When you see the Axios reporting, which talks about folks that are considering tendering their resignation, how much stock do you put into that?
Well, we know that. We know that's true. I don't know if the precise names that Axios is floating are correct, but we know, for example, that Rex Tillerson has been thinking about it for a long time. Top economic advisor Gary Cohn has been thinking about it for a long time. This is a president who has suffered unprecedented first-year turnover for a modern president. And by all indications, once these staffers hit the one-year mark on January 20th, the pace of turnover is probably going to accelerate. These are people who are sick and tired of dealing with this president and dealing with such a dysfunctional environment. Some of them have been determined to stick it out to get to 1 year as a resume item or for a sense of personal accomplishment. But by all accounts, there's going to be an additional exodus in the coming weeks and months.
But Jennifer, if they're sick and tired of it, and if, as James Fallows puts it, it's an open secret that there are questions about the president's mental stability, and as people within the White House say that they're questioning it as well, two reporters. I got a text from somebody who used to work in the White House asking me if I think the president has lost a step. And this was 3 months ago after my book came out, and he read that and then looked at the president on television. Given all of that, why are we not seeing resignations before now? Why are folks sticking around?
this is the great moral dilemma. Why did they go in, and why did they stay, and why did they remain quiet? And I think the real and very disappointing answer is people do this because they're careerists, because they love the excitement of working in the White House. They love the power. I would like to think that they're patriots, that their conscience would move us to do something. You know, there's been exactly one person who has resigned because he thought something foul was going on, and that's Mark Corallo, who was the spokesperson for the legal team for Donald Trump. He was on that flight on Air Force One when they were crafting and recrafting the cover story for the famous June meeting in Trump Tower, and he apparently told Mr. Wolf, listen, I thought there was obstruction of justice. He quit. Why don't we have more than a single person? Well, that's a good question, and I think part of it goes to the fact that quality attracts quality. The fish rots from the head, and very, I think, skilled, experienced people did not want to go work for this White House. And so we got what we got. My hope is that when they leave, they'll be more forthcoming. They'll go testify before Congress. They will come on the air. They'll explain what they've seen. And maybe we can come up collectively with a short circuit for this presidency, because I think we're in a dangerous, dangerous spot right now.
So in trying to blunt this book, the White House and the president have been attacking Steve Bannon, saying this is all about Steve Bannon being crazy and spinning lies. Michael Wolff, the author, pushed back on that on Today this morning. Listen.
The president has tried to put this book is about Steve Bannon. So let me say very forthrightly, this book is not about Steve Bannon. This book is about Donald Trump.
Neera, let's play devil's advocate here. Couldn't you say that this book is about Steve Bannon's version of Donald Trump?
Well, I presume that Michael Wolff has a lot of sources. It seems like he has a lot of sources from his book. Obviously, I am absolutely no Steve Bannon fan. I think he's a terrible person and has proposed terrible policies for the country and is incredibly divisive. What I think is what people are kind of losing sight of here is that Steve Bannon is an eyewitness to a lot of events. Jennifer referenced some of them, but he is an eyewitness to the president's responses, to Donald Trump's response to the Russia investigation. The fact that he calls the campaign that he later was the CEO of treasonous and unpatriotic, and basically alleges that, or basically argues that there's a lot wrong going on here. Then the president attacks him viciously. I think he has a lot to offer congressional investigators, and obviously Mueller, in being a witness to what happened here, witness to possible cover-ups that happened inside the White House around what happened in the campaign. And so, I think we're talking about two people who basically have guns to each other's heads here, and for one to live, the other must die. And I honestly don't know which way it'll go in the end.
Listen, a lot of folks have been predicting Donald Trump's demise now since he announced.
Yeah, I'm not betting on it. I'm not betting on it. I'm just saying. I'm not saying you are betting on it. But when people look at this book and they say, "Oh my gosh, it's really detailing how nuts it is inside the White House. You can't survive this." Neera, do you think this book is going to, or actually Jennifer, do you think this book is really going to leave a mark? Is this going to last, or is this going to be another way that the president of the United States can say everybody is out to get me, the media is out to get me, the mainstream political establishment is out to get me, the deep state is out to get me. Look at all they're doing to try and embarrass me.
I don't think anything is going to end this presidency until, Neera, you got me, until you have a Democratic Congress, until you have a group of people who are willing to impeach this president. Democrats are not going to sit still. And I wonder what Republicans are going to think going into November when their Democratic opponents say, we know that you have been enabling an unfit, unbalanced president. We Democrats will do what is necessary to protect the country, and you won't. I don't know what the possible response to that is.
Just to underscore. Go ahead,
the only thing I'd add to that is, this book takes place against the backdrop of a special prosecutor investigation. So my point is only that Steve Bannon in this book, other references in this book, will be fodder for the special prosecutor to investigate. I'm not saying that the book itself will take down Donald Trump, although I think a lot of Republicans have to recognize that it's not me saying the president's campaign was treasonous. It's Steve Bannon saying that. But I'm not saying that's going to take him down. I'm just saying at the end of the day, there is a legal process underway to create possible accountability for the president, and this book will be part of the record of that legal process that Mueller himself can choose to investigate. If I were on his team, I may call in Steve Bannon for a question or two.
No doubt about that.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.